Most comedians say, if I could just make one person laugh, I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
That is so true. And that one person needs to be you.
Yeah.
It really needs to be you. There was this comic book shop, and every Friday night, I'd see...
There they are, in their Doctor Who scarves.
Yes, it's kind of a...
Right?
Yes. You're very funny. You are.
Well, as Bill's half-brother, you know, I got half the... Welcome.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thank you. It's, I've been on your show, now you're on my show. I want to start with, let's call it the elephants in the room, okay? You don't have to agree. I'm going to say the elephants, and then you tell me if you want to talk about the elephants in the room.
All right.
Okay. ADHD, OCD, germophobia.
They're all connected.
Understood. So the reason I want to start there is not to do a comedy bit. It's because it's become part of your story. Do you feel that way?
I don't know if it's part of my story or just it's who I am, and it's interpreted, mostly misinterpreted by people who know me as my shtick, my bit.
To be fair, because you and I just got to know each other a little bit recently, although we met years ago. I don't know if you remember that. We met somewhere in like the Regis and Kathy Lee show or something.
Probably,
beside each other
yes.
Backstage. You were very nice. It was nice to meet you then.
Still nice. But I'm still tremendously conflicted. You know, there's always a conflict going on. Always. I never feel, you know... that's my resting state, is in turmoil.
Right. So that's kind of the point I was trying to make, is because I just got to know you a little bit recently. When I first heard about this, because I didn't know it, and I think I even tried to hug you or something, and you recoiled. But because you're such a comedian in the culture, I think people they can't help but thinking it's kind of like an act. But I know it isn't. So that's kind of why I want to sort of start there.
Well, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I was close for a short amount of time with Louis Anderson. Do you know Louis Anderson?
I knew Louis, yeah. Louis seemed to like me, and whenever I would see him, he'd want to sit and talk to me for like 20 minutes.
One of the sweetest, smartest, beautiful human beings, and I miss him dearly. But I'm using this as kind of an analogy of how I feel. You know, I think Louis had a lot of turmoil, and I think we all do in our lives. And whether it's internal or external, it doesn't really differ. But a big part of Louis's act was his weight and eating, you know, at least when he first started, before he started delving more into maybe family and relationships and things like that. And I remember sitting with him in a restaurant, and somebody came over to the table and tried to be really funny and said something like, you're the fat guy, or, you know, or whatever. And he got really upset, and which he needed to be really upset, and shunned the person that was approaching him. And that's when I realized, like, even for me, you know, he could use his weight and his eating and whatever, and you know, humor was a panacea. Humor was a tool. Humor is a coping skill, and that's not for others to play with. And by the same token, you know, I believe in art kind of works well when the artist is somewhat authentic, you know. I would imagine in music.
I've paid dearly for my authenticity, yes.
But the truth is, you are who, you know. If we listen to your songs and we listen to your music, we should be able to somewhat interpret who you are, or how you think.
That's kind of what I'm poking around at.
Right.
Not to say it defines you, but it's become these things, these letters that people throw around that they don't always necessarily know what they mean.
OCD and ADHD.
Sure, and we'll get there in a second.
But what I'm saying is, I am who I am. I deal with with what I deal with, and it was never considered humor when I was young, and we could talk about that earlier. I act out, and I kind of am impulsive, and I can get silly, and I can get what may be interpreted at times as funny, but that's. And you know what? It works for me, and it's bought me houses, and it's bought me, and it's also, I learned, and it wasn't my mission, by being open about it. It kind of, because when I did open up about it accidentally on the Howard Stern show, we've talked about that before privately, but and I talked about it in my book. When I did open up about it, I was terrified and thought that was the end of the world, that people know that I am.
What did you think people would think of you?
My first thought, because when it happened, I was already married with children. I was in my mid-40s. I thought, because I'm going to be 70 this year, so that you're talking about 30 years ago. I thought, number one, my kids who are in school are going to be humiliated by the fact that now the world will know that their parent is a mental case, has mental health issues. So that was my first thought. My second thought was that I won't be employable. I won't be able to do anything anymore.
You think Hollywood would sort of...
Yeah, if I tell somebody, as a child of the 50s, if I'm really open about the fact that it's really hard for me to function, any given project, tour,
Right.
anything, is somebody's putting up millions of dollars for a TV show or for whatever. Why would you have somebody who is, mentally unstable?
A handful.
A handful. So that was unemployable. And then the overwashing fear was humiliation. So it's embarrassing to talk about yourself, especially for somebody who wasn't. I'm not social.
Yes, I know this about you.
So those are the three emotions that kind of overwhelmed me when I
will say, because I've been around your world a little bit in recent times, the people who know you best and the people who love you, they speak of those issues with affection. So there's something sweet about that, because it says that they love you and they understand that navigating those things for you is sort of part of the deal. But it doesn't in their eyes, it doesn't define you, which I think is telling.
The truth of the matter is, and I feel, not that I'm, and it is my soapbox, mental health. I think at any given point in any human being's life, whether they have a diagnosable issue or not, you're going to have a hard time functioning, and you're going to need outside help and a coping skill. And whether that's going to be, the end of a relationship, a death, diagnosis of, so I realized that, I cope with all those things as a human being living as long as I have lived, along with when nothing is going on, what's going on in my head.
What would be a key coping skill for someone that's overwhelmed by the environment, for example?
For me, and I think for most people, it's, I constantly don't feel in control of whether it's the environment, whether it's, whatever's happening.
I think that would surprise people, because you're such even though you're Canadian, you're such an American success story. You know what I mean?
But I'm not in control.
Okay, but let me finish my question. Or my point. It's you're seen as somebody who's running his world. I mean, you have a world. I mean, I literally refer to, because there's some connection here with how we shoot the production in your world. I literally call it Howie Mandel's world. I mean, you have a world. There's all these businesses and people and employees, and you are a boss, whether you think of yourself as one. And even being on your podcast, your family's very much involved. I mean, it's a family effort. I'm impressed by that.
Thank you. I work really hard ad nauseum to control my environment
Okay.
because I am so cognitively aware of how much control we don't have in everything. So, and because that is so prevalent in my, that's always poking at me, I try really hard to, and I think it's an issue to control. Like even, I mean, you're leaning into the fact that, I have the studios and the kids are working at my studio, but that's because I'm so afraid of working someplace else where somebody else
So it's
turns on the light.
It's less a sign of power than more of a sign of I need my environment within the parameters of a certain level of control so I can feel comfortable, so I can be my best.
It's not power over anybody else, but it is a sign of power. I want the power to control what goes on in my world. I always want. That's why, out of everything that I do in my career, the most provocative and the place that I always want to land is a stand-up, because as a stand-up comedian, and that's where I start, like people go, you're the AGT guy, or you're the Deal or No Deal guy. The stand-up is the only moment where I have power. I control, and it's not power.
I get it.
I control.
I know exactly what you mean. I do. I really
there's
do.
no cast. I don't have to wait for a line to do that. I don't have to throw to a commercial. I don't have to hit a mark. I don't have to even curb my language or my subject matter. But it's really the one place where I can live in the moment, be totally distracted, and not be concerned, or the concern, I'm using the word concern, but it's terrified of what I don't have control of, what could come at me.
Sure. I have a theory, and this is a theory I've arrived at later in life, but almost all human behavior, at least social behavior, is defined by trauma, meaning something happens at somewhere in the early years, and then that sort of defines a patterning that persists with or without the input of what caused the trauma.
Right.
And I read a story about when you were a kid, there was something with sand fleas or something under your skin.
I had these. Yes, I had we didn't know, but I got bitten by a sandfly in Florida, the beach, and it laid its eggs under my skin. And I had these bumps, and when I would scratch them, then the bumps would move and crawl up. It's like, I don't know that's traumatic.
I'm not looking for the rosebud moment.
But I feel that there isn't a living human being that hasn't been traumatized. I would imagine birth is traumatic.
There are beliefs. My daughter had a traumatic birth. She's 6 years old now, and if I didn't see it with my own eyes, do you know about osteopaths?
Yes.
So we took our daughter to a really well-known osteopath, and my wife's mother is very into infant development, believes children need to properly crawl in order to do certain things, and create core strength and core trust values, and it's all really deep infant developmental stuff. Anyway, so my mother-in-law said, because of the baby's birth trauma, you need to take her to an osteopath. So I went along, I got this 1-month-old baby, and the gentleman laid her on the table, and he literally was touching her like this, just very gently, like nothing crazy. And all of a sudden, it was like the exorcism. All this stuff started coming out of her like this kind of, if I hadn't seen it with my eyes, I wouldn't believe it. And the guy's like, yeah, that's all the birth trauma. And it's a good thing we're releasing it now, because she would have carried this into her life. So whether people believe that or not, I don't really care. But I'm saying is, I believe in what you're saying, that there's a sort of everybody has imprinting from
everything.
Sure.
And everything is traumatic. Somebody once, I heard an analogy about life, It's, we cannot choose our song. We cannot choose.
You can write your own,
Right. But in the pantheon of the world,
sure.
If this is a song, but you can choose how you're going to dance to it.
Okay.
So that's playing.
Are you Zorba, right?
But the truth is, it makes sense. What you're saying makes sense. Okay. Like, we are a human being I would imagine being a parent now, I reflect on myself. You know, I've said this so many times, but you know, I thought I'd grow up and have kids and teach them about the world. But I grew up and had kids, and as a parent, they are teaching me about the world because I'm seeing how humans, other human beings, are reactionary and how they react to the environment, how they react to whatever I say or whatever is done, how they're, you know, and you have to imagine there is a soul. You know, you think of an infant, for me, is kind of like a foreigner who is learning the language and that, but they're fully, I would imagine whoever they are is, and whoever we were, was fully formed.
I'm sure you saw it with your kids. I mean, I look at my kids at 1 month old and I could see who they were going to be, and that's who they turned out to be. It was hard baked in them. It had nothing to do with environment.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can imagine if the soul is being squeezed through this canal and they can't breathe. And
sounds glorious to me. I don't know.
It depends what part of you is kind of the whole thing. Anyway, I won't get into that. But I'm just saying, birth has got to be traumatic. Everything is traumatic. The moment they learn, the moment you say goodnight and you close the light and close the door and walk out of the room, for a minute they cry and then they go to sleep.
So, without looking for the rosebud moment, do you? I guess what I'm looking for is there a connection in your mind between comedy and something to do with your trauma in your life? Because we've talked about...
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So give me that. Please.
Okay. Two things. If, you know, the two masks of comedy and tragedy are very close together. And I think they're exactly the same. They really are. It's just a different reaction.
Well, Shakespeare understood this at like some cellular level.
And so does Howie. The thing...
Howie Shakespeare?
Oh, 'tis me. But it's, again...
Sorry to interrupt you.
It's no problem. No, it's a good conversation. Something tragic can happen. You look at the mask of tragedy, you can cry. And that's your reaction to it. Mm-hmm. And you cry, and you wail, and you scream. Something tragic could happen, and some people can laugh.
Yeah.
Or need to laugh. And the laughter is what holds you together so you don't break apart.
Yeah.
So you don't break. And that's what I feel when I feel emotional pain, when I feel fear, when I feel out of control. I laugh.
So is the I don't want to assume, you know, in my mind, Howie Mandel, the comedian that I saw on television everywhere in the 80s, like you were all over the place, right? I saw that person many times. Was that a character that was formed by trauma as a trauma response, or was that a character that you sort of authored?
You're using the term character, but it wasn't much different from me. And, you know, a lot of people
But you're very calm now, so that's why.
Because
I only know you personally, this guy.
Because when somebody went, ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel, I was terrified, you know? And I learned and kind of emulated what I thought I saw from Richard Pryor was authenticity. If I feel like my internal voice was going, okay, all right, okay, what?
So it's internal dialogue
which I let out.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people...
By the way, I feel like I got that. I understood that somehow. So it resonates with me because I'm attaching it to a 40-year-old memory, right?
Right.
Like here I am in some suburb somewhere watching you on television.
Right.
From Chicago, where everybody in Hollywood looked fantastic, you know what I mean?
Right.
And there you are.
Terrified, going, okay.
But I saw that as your internal dialogue, so I did get that. So
but I think that's why, if I had to analyze, and I don't have to, but if I had to analyze why I rose to some notoriety, as opposed to in any given day you go to a comedy club and you could see somebody on amateur night and they don't. It's not because you can't say that's not funny. You can only say that doesn't make you laugh. You can't say that's not good. You can only say I don't relate to that. I think that as much as people thought it was funny, deep inside and not without being able to articulate it, people understood that kind of hype. That's how I feel inside. I don't think you could articulate that as a kid in Chicago. Go ahead.
No, well, was it a concern that you weren't funny enough? Is that on some
It
level?
was. It was.
I watched a clip of you last night where I don't know what show you were on, and it's like prime that era, and you asked the audience kind of a somewhat rhetorical thing, like, you know what I'm saying, and the audience didn't respond, but what you were really looking for was to connect with their own inner dialogue. And you pushed them till you got a response. Right. It was really, it was one of those things, because I don't think I would have noticed if I was just watching a clip of you.
Right.
I was trying to watch you work, basically, right? So I watched you kind of flip that internal dialogue into their internal dialogue and then create this other conversation. It's like somebody saying, I know I'm a bit crazy and I know this is a bit silly, right? And they're kind of like, and you're like, no, really? Like, can you see what's happening?
But join me in this. But
yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay,
you know,
that's what I'm after.
I've asked you, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? I've asked you 3 times. You know, I used to do things like that, but that was the truth. The first time that came out, it was like, just answer me, come with me. Yeah. And it's kind of the same energy, which I've said on many other interviews. It's the same energy. I like that adrenaline and fear that I get from a thrill ride. Even today, I'll go on a big roller coaster.
Okay, but how does that jive with being out of control, being in control, authoring a character on stage, and then throwing yourself in the deep end and not knowing how the audience is going to respond?
Multi-layers.
Sure.
And I'll tell you what the layers are. The layer is when I'm on a roller coaster and I'm 30 stories in the air and going over that hump and being dropped down and I'm going, wow, you know, which if I was sitting there like I was just now, if I'm sitting there, you're out of your mind, right? Yes. But not on a roller coaster. Nobody's looking at you, and I'm not worried about touching the dirty thing because I'm so in the moment.
Is it a form of freedom then?
It's a form of distraction. It's a form of I'm in that, and when somebody says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel," and I'm standing there in front of on television or wherever. It is so, I'm going to the exact opposite, which I think opposites are the same. It's so fucking humiliating. It's so terrifying.
What's humiliating? I don't understand.
Because somebody goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel," and then thousands of people that I don't know are going, "This is okay."
But you lose me on the humiliation part, so that's where
because if I don't deliver whatever their expectation is, and I can't be in your mind, and I don't know what you expect, I don't really know your sensibility, then it's embarrassing, right?
Can I? Because I'm interested in this conversation, so I'm not being contrarian. I want to sort of give you.
Go ahead.
My response to the trauma of walking on stage, because I felt the exact same anxiety and the exact same sense of overwhelm. And on top of that, I had a musician father who judged that I would never be as good as he was. So I had this double thing going on of like dad over here and the audience over here. For some reason, my innate response was I don't care what you think. It was weird. It was nothing I would have guessed that I would have arrived at. But I eventually in the first couple of years, I wound around to, I really don't care what you think.
So, to that end, and that's why I talk about layers. What I do when I'm performing and on stage is what I think is funny. I'm really, really, really just entertaining myself. I really am.
There's a joke there, you realize.
Yeah, in fact, well, I always say that, most comedians say, if I could just make one person laugh, I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
That is so true. And that one person needs to be you.
Yeah.
It really needs to be you. And
who for you is the ultimate comedian in making themselves laugh?
I used to cherish every waking moment I spent with Gilbert Gottfried.
Right.
And Gilbert was a guy who was incredibly underrated.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved about him and what we shared together as friends was the fact that the response didn't, and still for me today, doesn't have to be, that's funny. The response has to be, it could be angering a group of people, making a lot of people feel awkward, just being able to paint those shades of humanity. My favorite moments beyond being on stage, even more than being on stage, Gilbert and I used to hang with him in New York, and we used to go to the Carnegie Deli.
Okay.
And do you remember the Carnegie Deli? You could sit. If you and me went to the Carnegie Deli, we couldn't get a table for two. We would just say two, and they'd sit us at a table with 38 tourists, right? Yeah. And everybody's sitting there, and their corned beef sandwich comes, and they take a picture of their corned beef sandwich, and it was kind of funny for us. We would go there, and you'd sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, and I'd say to Gilbert, like, "How you doing?" And he'd begin. He'd go, "I don't know if it's right in my sphincter. There's I don't know if it's a lesion or something, but all night long it's like a fluid. It's like a fluid that just soaked the sheets, and people, and you can hear the tapping. They would drop their fork, and and it was just so funny. And I'd go, really? And he'd go, you know what? And I think it's an infection because when I tasted the fluid, it's like I think it's pus, and that would just be the beginning. And then I'd gag and I threw up on myself, and then my ass is bleeding, and there's pus, and I'm throwing, and I'm just giving you it would go on until people would drop their plates, and we would just see how long it would take to empty the table. And to me, that had the same joy as being on stage by myself. And the truth is that and there's a few other comedians that I know that we share that need to entertain ourselves, and it doesn't have to be what you would think is a joke.
Is it a pathological urge, do you think?
I think it's an urge to control the narrative. It's an urge to
yes.
This group of us who don't feel they're in control, and the seed of that goes back to laughter is contagious. I've told this story before, but my parents
I only want fresh stories, but go on.
Well, you can edit this out. But my parents used to laugh all the time. My dad is very funny. There was a good sense of humor in my family, but I didn't get it because I was too young to understand what they would laugh at. I'd hear them listening to the late night talk shows, and I didn't understand the jokes. The first time I was cognizant of what they were doing was I was maybe 4 years old, and they were in the living room watching Alan Funt. And Alan Funt,
what was the name
Candid Camera.
Thank you. Yeah.
Candid Camera. And he explained what he was going to do. And it was like a surprise party. He set up a joke, and the joke was, it doesn't sound that funny, but he pretended he was a boss. They hired faux receptionists, the Marks. Young ladies would come in, and he'd say, "You have to answer the phone. You can't miss a phone call. I need you. I'm going to go out. I can't miss."
And then, like Lucy, they would overwhelm them, or
they'd overwhelm them. They tied a rope to the leg of the desk, and when the phone rang, when she went to reach for it, they pulled it from the other side, from another wall, and the desk went away, and you'd see her face. And knowing this was going to happen, that anticipation was, I turned to my parents. We were all waiting. It was like a surprise party. And then when it happened, the woman, it was a guttural laugh that we all shared together. And I think even to this day, as a man who's about to turn 70, I look for that kind of shared experience of watching somebody else. You control the narrative. Go ahead.
No, so that explains this the inner id in you relating to the inner id in them. That's kind of what I saw in this clip that I'd never caught before with you. It's like a revelation of like, here's my inner id, as messy as it is, you know, come along for this journey. We can have a little bit of laugh in here. Does it make sense?
Yeah, but I feel bad.
I'm not diminishing it.
You're not diminishing it, but when I bring it to the surface and talk to you about it, I mean, it's very self-serving.
Well,
you know, and that's, go ahead.
I'm not trying to interrupt, but my point is, you know more professional comedians than I do. I mean, they're all selfish bastards that I've ever met. I've yet to meet a professional comedian that is not a selfish bastard.
Thank you.
Well, it works for you guys.
Does it? You know, the truth of the matter is...
Here's what I told my wife last night, because I told her we were going to talk today. And I said that, you know, the difficulty in being around a guy who's an ace comedian is you can't get a laugh in edgewise because they don't laugh at your jokes. You know, it's like it's really hard to get a laugh out of a professional
But here's
comedian.
the thing. To get a laugh, but amongst comedians, the truth is, it's because... I think it's because we see the humor, and I think that I appreciate. You're very funny. You are. I think that as
Bill's half brother, you know, I got half the.
But the thing about what I'm going to say to you is, and I think you can kind of relate from a musical standpoint. When somebody is playing music, you probably listen to that music and you hear.
Oh, I'm terrible. I'm the biggest snob in the world.
Are you a snob or even if you're not a snob, even if you really enjoy something, it's not like you're going to go, woo, and just clap along. You are going to go, oh my God, that is a brilliant collection and order of notes.
Sure.
And what a brilliant idea that they decided to put this rhythm under that with that. You see it so clearly and understand it so clearly that you can appreciate it, enjoy it in a different way than maybe just the audience might enjoy it.
But I'm still a snob.
By the same token, but you are
probably a selfish bastard too.
But by the same token, if I see something that I think is brilliantly funny and crafted incredibly well, I kind of am so inside it that I appreciate it, love it, will probably repeat it to everybody I know and go, you got to see what this guy did last night or this girl did last night. And but laughter, because because I take it apart and see it for what it is, it doesn't elicit laughter unless you surprise me with it.
Okay.
Unless I'm not expecting to see it.
Okay.
I don't know that I'm about to listen to something or see something that might be funny. You know, if I don't know and it hits me off guard, then that's why I always say to people, even on AGT, that people don't appreciate or understand that the comedian, you know, when somebody comes out on stage and they're singing a song mostly on AGT that they didn't write. Mm-hmm. So they're just kind of copying something and then they can play for their 2 minutes and then finish and then everybody goes like this. The comedian is constantly throwing these compositions at you, which come from their soul. Nobody else wrote it. It's truly who they are. And they can't wait 2 minutes for you to go that. To elicit.
I see.
And if that sound doesn't come, it's really apparent to everybody else to maybe this isn't good. That's why you have to do it in an audience.
So if you're bombing on stage, not that you've ever bombed.
I do bomb, and I've bombed this week. I bomb all the time.
Okay, so what is your go-to if you're bombing?
I'm actually, at this point in my career, comfortable with discomfort. I like the idea. I know that bombing forces growth and creativity to get out of that dark hole.
Yeah.
So I will drop in on clubs 3-4 times a week to just try things out.
I didn't know that. So you go around town and just drop in?
Always.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I'd love to come see you sometime.
I'll probably be some.
I
I won't be
I
someplace tonight
honestly-
because I take over tonight.
Bottom of my heart, I assume you're such a big star, you just don't do local gigs.
No, I do. That's how that's how I know. In the middle of a rainstorm, I'll drive out to the Ice House, or I was at the Laugh Factory a couple times last week, because my process. I need to be in front of people to know that I know that I think it's funny, but then to realize that okay, I can't deliver this, or this isn't being received the way I
I get it.
I think. But I also won't go there and do, when I drop it in the clubs, I won't do the Bobby voice. I won't do, things that people expect me to do, because I love the process of the writing. I love the process of just trying something.
Well, that's admirable, because I didn't know that about you. So
you should appreciate me.
You're here. Comedy star, TV star, film star, entrepreneur, producer, Hollywood Walk of Fame. Is it enough?
Well, first of all, the word star doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't.
What word would you use then?
I'm working.
For example, I did a thing last night on the internet where I was revealing, a next guest for this show, in real time, and I started to refer to the person as a star, and I said, well, that doesn't quite qualify, because so many people are stars these days. It's like internet stars and Insta famous and all this. So I referred to the person as a true star, because I was having to search for a qualifier in current American culture of what people are of actual accomplishment. And I would place you in the ranks of people of actual accomplishment.
No, I think I'm a person who, in any given day...
Don't be humble, come on.
I'm not being humble. I'm being real. I have a perspective. I'm a lot older than you. And the perspective...
But you don't look it. That's the confusing part.
It's because we keep
our
hairlines a secret.
I really want to be your doctor is what I want.
We keep our hairline... No, you don't want to be my doctor, I'm telling you. The truth of the matter is, star, notoriety, fame is really nothing. It's like you need to, and
I know this. I mean, I'm with you. So
okay. So, but what I'm saying is, as important as you think you are in the moment.
Okay, but that's what I'm after. Do you feel important enough?
Never.
So
Never.
what is important enough for you?
I'm just trying to survive. I swear, I'm just trying to.
So there's not so much an aspirational goal at this point as much as I want to keep my head above water.
But what's the aspiration? Like, what is, if I really break it down, and I break it down because it was, I've talked many times about when Richard Pryor used to come to the Comedy Store. He's my inspiration, and and a lot of young comics at the time he inspired, and a lot of the comedy you see today is like that. But everybody who was anybody used to come to the Comedy Store to see this because we knew it was a happening. At the time, the #1 box office, so that's worldwide, around the world, the biggest movie star in the world. It used to show up every night, and it was such a big thing. Like, people were in awe. If our culture was bowing down to people, they would have bowed down to Burt Reynolds.
Okay.
My 30-year-olds kids have no, if I said Burt Reynolds, they would have to Google him. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't.
So is your point, if it doesn't have sustain, therefore I don't get caught up in that, I'm in the moment, and...
I think that we need to, this is going to sound too, I'm learning that the importance, people who are seeking fame, and I tell this to young people all the time, people who want to come up to you.
Well, you're in it in these shows. I mean.
Well, I'm doing something that I enjoy, and as luck would have it, the things that I enjoy are being viewed by others, and maybe for a moment, it's a distraction for them. Maybe in the moment, there's people who are watching this right now, maybe they're enjoying it. Maybe they think I'm full of shit. Maybe they want to turn it off. Maybe they can't stand anything I'm saying. There are so many different things. Most people don't give a fuck. Most people don't care. And what I've learned through therapy is that I just need to survive, cope, and do the best that I can do in the moment.
But is that a trauma response?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. You know, everything.
I guess what I'm after is, at what point do you, handsome as you are, look in the mirror and say, I've done it, I've won the race, I can relax a little bit. It's not that I don't want to be.
Never.
Is it because of this town makes you nuts, or because the 4-year-old?
It's not even show business. It's just never. I've just never. If I wasn't in Hollywood and I was still selling carpet or whatever,
were you a good carpet salesman?
The best.
Can you give me your pitch?
Anything but talk about carpet. I'm colorblind. I just needed you to enjoy the time with me and buy whatever I was selling you.
I see.
And that's what it is right now. I don't think I'm the best comedian either. I don't think I'm the best actor. I don't think I'm the best at anything. I just try my best. And at any given moment, I'm trying to be an interesting interview right now.
So if somebody sat down and said, you're better than you think you are, here's my proof.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No, I have to think.
Have you ever done this psychological technique? I've had my years in therapy, but you sort of imagine you're speaking to your 4-year-old self. Have you ever done that?
Uh-huh. Yeah, my therapist had me do that.
Great. So what would you say to your 4-year-old self if your 4-year-old self knew that the future you was never going to feel comfortable? Like, what would you say to that child empathetically? Like, it's going to be okay, or just keep moving, kid?
Keep moving, because everything, and you may find this too, the older you get, everything you cannot predict. You can't predict your life. You can't predict what you're going to do. You can't predict an outcome, good or bad. And everything that I thought, like, if you want to just narrow it down to the career, just the career alone. When I started in comedy, and comedy started with me, I didn't want to be a comedian. I didn't care. I didn't know. But in my world, comedians ended up getting movies and sitcoms, and people who were in movies and sitcoms didn't want to do commercials. The last thing they wanted to do, which was the dredge of whatever that hierarchy is a game show. If I thought that my biggest, brightest, shining moment would be the host of a game show, I would have said, are you fucking kidding me? In fact, when it came to me, I was turning it down. So everything, I don't know, what I've learned to realize, and what I would say to my 4-year-old self is, as time goes on, as much as you're growing and changing, so is culture.
Yeah.
So you don't know, you can't make decisions or worry about the way you're going to do something, how something is going to be perceived, what is going to happen, because you're not only moving, but the world is moving.
Can I give you a take on you as a game show host? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think it's particular maybe to my generation, so maybe it wouldn't land for other generations. But I think what's been cool about your career is, if you'd ask somebody along the way, they would say, well, he's just a comedian. You know what I mean? And then people would debate, as they do, whether or not you're funny.
Right.
Right. I mean, that was the standard, right? He's funny, he's not funny. Good or bad. Something about your mainstreaming into American culture, I think sort of, it created a balance that didn't exist there before, which was like, you belonged somehow into this greater American family, and your value was greater than whether or not he's funny or not funny. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's not as, I went into Deal or No Deal kicking and screaming. I
would imagine. I mean,
and not only because of what I thought being a game show host would be perceived, as far as what 2005, what the landscape was for people who, but also because I didn't understand how you could make an hour of television of having people pick a case and then me say, open the case. Like I didn't have a trivia question to ask somebody.
Yeah.
I didn't have a skill that they were going to comment on.
Yeah.
Like how many times over and over, you got 2 more cases, you have 3 more cases, open the case. In fact, while it was happening.
See, that's funny.
It is funny. It really is. But in the moment, as I'm just treading water, trying not to drown.
What did your wife think when you went when you went home and said, "Terry's your wife, right?" Yeah, Terry, lovely person. I've been blessed to meet her. I got this opportunity. What'd she say?
Oh, she's the one. I always say yes to everything in life because I have fear of missing out, and I also jump at things impulsively. It's the first thing that I ever said no to. And I was in the midst of leaving, retiring. And when I say retiring, it was like I wasn't going to go out on the road anymore. I wasn't selling tickets.
I didn't know this. So in your mind, you're kind of done.
I was getting kicked in the nuts. My soul was being crushed every day. It was just embarrassing. I was sitting in...
You were how old?
In 2005. You guys do the math. I don't know the math.
Close to 50.
I'm 70. Yeah, I was close to 50. But it just wasn't... It was really hard. I wasn't incredibly successful at the time. You know, careers have ebbs and flows, and I just said, like, and I have other interests, as you know, in real estate and dropping in 3-4 times a week to comedy clubs, so I could do that, and I get I'm still doing it. Yeah. Comedy. I don't have to sell tickets.
I get that. Yeah.
So I said that's what I'm going to do. When they came to me with this, I thought, this is the nail in the coffin of my career, and she knows me better than anybody and protects me more than anybody and loves me more than anybody. And she was the one that said, you better go do it. And I go, but it's nothing. She goes, you better go do it. You just need to do something.
Was there an inner rationalization there? Like, meaning, did she have a reason behind that?
Yeah, because she knows that the more idle I am, the less I have to do if I don't have a place to go during the day and I'm waiting at night to do that.
You mean idle, I-D-L-E. When you said idle, I heard I-D-L. Well, sorry.
I'm not an idle. But the more, the less I have to do, the more...
So she's a proponent of stay busy and you're going to be fine.
Of me staying busy.
That's what I mean. Yes. Personalizing because she's your wife.
Yes. So she said, just go do it, and it doesn't matter if it's embarrassing. Just go do it. Just be busy. Be amongst people. Try to be creative. It's kind of that question that you asked earlier about, like, when you're bombing, how do you cope? She knows that if this was really hard for me, it's kind of like exercise, you know? If you one more sit-up, you're going to get closer to that six-pack. If you're in this shitty situation, how are you going to turn it around?
So walk me through... From an existential point of view, the comeback, right? You know what I mean? Because in America, if you're able to have these second and third acts, you know, Sinatra and, you know, there's these legendary American cultural moments. Elvis, the 60s.
I don't know if you can compare the Sinatra comeback to Deal or No Deal.
No,
but
but let me have my indulgence here.
Okay, go ahead.
Because that's what the show's for, right? I'm trying to make myself laugh here.
Go ahead.
No, because I find it really fascinating because one of the things that I want to establish if this show is successful is that we have learned to view success in the American paradigm incorrectly. Like I was saying before, in the world you and I grew up in, different generations, but close enough, you're known for this one thing. I sing, you make people laugh. Well, when that stops, get the hell out.
Right.
You're no good anymore. In fact, the shadow of they take your highest shadow along the route, and then they cast that over and you say, look at you. You're pathetic. Get out. So those in our culture who can find some deeper resolve or courage to pivot, to find a new voice, to somehow find rejuvenation, it's a very, very, very rare thing. And what you've accomplished is a very, very rare thing. It's a short list of people who have had a true second or third act at the peak.
So I understand everything you're saying, except I'll tell you the frustration of that
Okay.
for me right now. And I love Deal or No Deal. Loved it. And probably the biggest success to date in my career of, the kind of
And
notoriety.
you know how I know that? Because my family, who lives in Florida, my extended family, they watched. So when I would
And
go
people
down,
still
when I would,
watch.
no, but I'm saying because I don't live in that world, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm a weirdo.
Right.
So I know it's happening because when I go visit my brother, it's on.
Okay.
And that's how I know you're reaching that part of the world that I grew up in.
And by the same token, I'm on AGT, which is America's Got Talent and Canada's Got Talent, and on YouTube.
And Thailand's Got Talent.
Yeah, but I'm not on Thailand's Got Talent, but Canada's got, there is Thailand's Got Talent. You know that? It's in every country.
I just made that joke and I did not know that.
It is the #1 syndicated show in the world. Not syndicated, format. So the format means Simon Cowell owns it. He made more money from that than he ever made from music. And at one time he had 10 people maybe 5 people in the top 10 on Billboard worldwide as far as, One Direction, all these groups. But that's another conversation. Here's the thing. I'm a stand-up comic. Stand-up comedy is what I do and continue to do. And as I told you, 3-4 times a week, maybe 5-6 times a week, I'm on stage doing it. As a stand-up comic, I got recognized and, was given opportunities, whether those opportunities were seen elsewhere, whether it was Deal or No Deal, whether it was movies, whether it's AGT.
You were on the Match Game.
I was. I was on Match Game. I was on Tattletale. I was on everything. The point that I'm making is not a day goes by when I'm in public where somebody says to me, you should do comedy. I used to love when you were a comedian. And I love that you know me as the Deal or No Deal guy. I love that people watch me on AGT. But my love, regardless of, you're a really good interviewer. This is a wonderful thing that you're doing. And I wish you nothing, and you're already having success, and it's not by surprise. You're really good at this.
Thank you.
But you're a musician.
Oh, yeah. If you come up and say, I love your podcast, and they don't even know I play music, I would fall over and die.
If this thing becomes as big, if not bigger than Joe Rogan's, they go, you're the podcast guy, oh, you should do music. You were great. Remember Smashing Pumpkins? Yeah. Remember that? So that's what I deal with each and every day.
So is it a Faustian bargain for you?
Maybe. Except that I love all those other things. It's just that you forget my other art, or the art that is closest to who I am and what I need, and it doesn't, the fact that you don't know I do it doesn't really affect me, except that's what I am. That's who I am. That's closest to who I am.
Yes. I was struck because I was doing my research on you. You did a movie with Ted Danson, A Fine Mess.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember the poster?
Yeah. Standing there with my pants down. Oh, yeah.
Well, he seemed to have you in some sort of
that was with the maid suit.
But it says on the poster, and I thought this was kind of weird foreshadowing, because the movie came out 80, somewhere around there.
I think that's the box office, $80. I think that's what it...
The poster literally says, anguished by anxiety, plagued by paranoia, confounded by confusion. You need comic relief. Fast, fast, fast. That's on the poster.
Yeah, me.
I was like, wow, that's a weird foreshadow.
It wasn't foreshadow. I was in the midst of it, too. That was a great opportunity to work with Blake Edwards.
Oh, my God. That's one of the reasons I brought it up. I mean, what an interesting person.
Well,
do you enjoy it?
No.
Okay, tell me why. Not funny?
I was terrified. He was...
Did he hold Peter Sellers over your head?
No, I held Peter Sellers over my head. For those he did all the Pink Panther movies, and he did a lot of...
Was he funny, Blake Edwards?
No, unhappy.
Did he understood comedy, obviously.
Obviously.
The Party is, to me, one of the greatest...
Best movies ever. Ever.
I mean, that movie is so...
I know, the same
guy
that did The Party.
About it, Birdie Num Nums. It's still...
So watch that movie and watch A Fine Mess, and you watch the...
So what happened to Blake Edwards? Let's talk about that.
I don't think he was at a happy time in his life. I think he was suffering. He had back pain. at the time. I don't know. I can't, remember after that, like years after that, remember he came on the Academy Awards in a wheelchair.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think he did. But I've regaled in my book and on other podcasts the story that he told me that sticks with me. And it's this one story that he told me. And he told me the story about this guy goes to the psychiatrist, and he's just crying and can't even sit in the chair. He's in the fetal position, and apparently he's been seeing the psychiatrist for a while. And he goes, I just came in this last time to tell you that I'm going to end it. I can't do it. And he had been going to the psychiatrist who had tried regular therapy, medication, hypnosis, everything that a therapist, a psychiatrist could have in their toolbox. And the guy said, "That's it. I appreciate you trying to help me and being here for me, but I can't. I'm suffering. I just can't take any more. But I just wanted to come one more time and just say thank you, and I do appreciate it." And the doctor said, "I don't want you to do that, but can we try one more thing?" And he said, "The circus is in town," and I don't remember the clown's name, but this Boffo the Clown is this world-renowned clown that has made everybody and anybody laugh. And laughter is the best medicine. In fact, he has been, whether you speak English, all over the world, he's made people almost die laughing. He really has. And I know that if you laugh, cortisol will be released. And I would imagine that'll bring you out of your cloud. Let's just try laughter. Come see Boffo, the world. And I have 2 tickets tonight. I'll go with you.
Love that the therapist is going.
And the guy looked up through his tears, and he looked at the psychiatrist, and he said, "I am Boffo."
That's a good joke. I didn't see that one coming.
I don't know,
You got me.
I think it's kind of real. But I believe he told me that story because Blake Edwards is Boffo.
Boffo, yeah.
I'm Boffo. I think that under this mask of being silly and funny and light and in this chaos and pantheon of laughter, we're just trying to hold back our tears.
So why didn't you enjoy the process of working with him?
Because he was unhappy.
And he wasn't able to give you...
And it wasn't that good a movie. And I think that he was at the end of his career, though right afterwards he did, what's the movie he did? He did a movie right after that was a huge hit. I think he did 10 right after with Dudley Moore.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
He did. I had his low point. I hit him at the low point. I hit everybody at their low point. I did another movie. One of my first movies is a movie called Gas. It's with Donald Sutherland, and it was done in 1980. It's written by Dick Wolf, who went on.
He was a TV guy, no?
L.A. What's it called? Law and Order.
Right.
And a whole, but the first thing he ever wrote, I did. But I haven't been lucky with writers and directors, except on St. Elsewhere.
Okay. I found this fact about you surprising, so you tell me if it is a fact. Dungeons & Dragons player?
No.
Where'd that come from? Do you know?
No, but sometimes I'll answer.
It's in your bio.
Yeah, then the truth of the matter is I've put a lot of things in my bio and my Wikipedia because I find that funny, just to put odd little.
Have you ever played Dungeons & Dragons?
Never. In fact, I have been fascinated. Are you a Dungeons & Dragons?
I used to play when I was a kid.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it.
It's bigger than ever.
They're going to do a television show now. I think they are, as a game show. I don't understand it. I don't have that focus. I think you'd have to focus.
It's a very slow thing.
That's the problem.
And you have to roll dice.
I see people.
You'd hate because other people have to touch the dice. You'd have to have your own 20-sided dice.
I lived in Santa Monica for a while, and there was this comic book shop. And every Friday night, I'd see.
There they are in their Doctor Who scarves.
Yes, it's kind of a
right.
Yes, and I wander in. Curiosity.
Especially back then, it was like, who are these people?
That's exactly right. And my wife gets mad at me because my curiosity is my fuel, and I always want to know what's going on in there. What are they doing? And how? So I used to stand and watch Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Watch people play and be fascinated by how they looked.
Here's one that you'll. Roses are red. Violets are blue. I'm schizophrenic, and so am I.
That's mine. And
I know this.
I had Dice.
I'm not that clever.
No, but Dice came on my podcast, Andrew Dice Clay.
By the way, I've still never met Dice, and I'm in awe of Dice. So if you can make that happen,
I will make that happen.
When you look back at you as the young comedian, do you have any? I don't know. Empathy is the right word. Do you see something that you can only see now, looking back? Because that style of comedy was very frenetic, and
the fear was frenetic. So I don't know that I'm different as much as I don't have as much fear, but I try to get fear. Today, when I go on stage,
you wish you were scared,
but I make myself scared. I will
How do you make yourself scared? by
purposely veering off whatever plan I have, by purposely reacting.
So walk me through the mind of a pro comedian.
I can't. We're all different, but I can talk about myself.
Sure, but just indulge me. So there you are in Montana. You're at the Elks Lodge.
Tomorrow I'm in Fargo.
Okay, beautiful. So we're in Fargo.
Not in this month.
We're in Fargo.
Yeah.
There they are.
Yeah.
America.
Uh-huh.
They love you.
Uh-huh.
They know you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And you're going along, and you've got your 40 bits that you could reach in your pocket anytime. You're going to get guaranteed laughs.
Yeah.
Okay? We all know our little buttons we can press.
Right.
And you decide halfway through the set, you know what? I need to get my blood going. Walk me through something that you would do.
So what'll happen is, there'll be a noise or, somebody yells something out like they do at every concert, at anybody's concert, music or...
What would somebody yell at a Howie Mandel concert?
I probably don't know. Like I'll hear, and I'll stop and go, what was that? Was there a bell?
That was beautiful.
Well, I'm in a bonus for that.
Can we open the case now?
How did that happen?
I don't know. It was magical.
Wow. So I'll hear a bell. But then going off on that tangent isn't as safe as going to something that I'm trying...
Because you don't know where it ends.
No. Because I'm going, what did you just say? It could be, you suck.
Can I tell you a funny bit?
Yeah.
So I had this exact experience at a theater in New York. My band was kind of on the down, and so the audiences were particularly hostile at that time. And same thing, it was between songs, I was talking, and I heard a guy yelling, like, rrr, rrr, rrr. And I sort of did one of these to the audience, like, what did he say? And and I said, I want to hear what he's saying. And he said, I think you're terrible and you suck and you need to get off the stage. And everybody heard him because I calmed the crowd down. It's a theater. Right. So I said, why don't you come up here and say it on the microphone?
I love that.
And he came up and he cut like a wrestling promo on how terrible I was and how I'd lost my way in my musical life in front of my crowd.
And how did you feel?
I love wrestling. So what I did was I let him walk off the stage as if he was victorious, because of course he went off the stage like a victor, and then I let loose on the microphone.
So that's exactly what you're doing, and you're in a totally different milieu, but not really, it's the same as me.
It's all comedy.
but what I'm saying, it's all life. And whether you laugh at it, whether it scares you, whether the audience feels like, oh my God, I just witnessed.
Yes.
It's exciting. I love that. I have a guy next door, my buddy, do you know Tom Green?
Of course.
I love Tom.
I have Tom Green's number in my phone.
I think he's
here.
I've
hung out with Tom I should say hi. I've hung out with Tom in Vegas last time I saw him. We had a great time.
So Tom was the king.
Another Canadian, right?
Yes.
So you guys do hang together.
We do.
You have to admit.
Tom, have Tom walk into here if he's right here.
No, he's not welcome on my show, but go on.
But that'll be a nice moment of you throwing him off the show. What I'm saying to you is he was the king of doing something where you would say,
Yeah, I can't believe he just did that.
I can't believe he just did that. Is it funny? Is it gross? He's known for humping a dead moose? You know, that was one of his first things. Yeah, on MTV.
Speaking about trauma, couple things. We're into the bonus round.
Okay.
Okay, ready? I've loved talking to you. Thank you so much for indulging me. As someone who comes in direct contact, as someone who comes in direct contact with As someone who comes in direct contact with the American public, what do you really think of America?
America has given me.
No, what do you really think of America?
Well, I don't think America is any different, and I'm going to get hate for this online, than where I come from. I'm from Canada, and I really believe people are people. The problem, if there is a problem with people, and I do believe there is, I believe the problem with people is we have a tendency, most people don't do what you and I do, and that is...
play for a living.
But go. They don't go. And most people, I can't tell you how many times I land in a town and somebody in their 50s picks me up to take me to the theater or wherever I'm playing, and they tell me, what's California like? Or I've never been on an airplane, or I've never been... So people have a tendency, we have a tendency, like these little animals that get in little pods of people who are like-minded, who are in the same socioeconomic, and they trade information. And even, they all have their personal algorithm. Even before the internet, everybody that was in my little family circle, in my little suburb, that's an algorithm, and that's what they know. And
sure.
I can't, and, I remember when my mom was living in Florida, and she would say, everybody hates so-and-so. Everybody? In your condo, everybody hates so-and-so. So I have a feeling that most people just are not aware of what it's like. I think the internet...
So when you see that, you don't judge it, is what I'm trying to say, or asking.
I don't judge it. I'm aware of it.
Okay.
I'm aware of it.
Yeah, because I've had a tendency at times to see that, and it makes me cynical. And I was curious because you seem...
Well, it's how you... I can't react to it, but it's kind of like that Kendrick Lamar song, "They Not Like Us." Mm-hmm. And the truth is, they're not. And I realize that they're not, and you're not like me, and I'm not like you. We have similarities, but we are victims of our circumstance and of our environment. And most people outside of show business we are forced. I'm forced to go to Fargo and sit in a restaurant in Fargo. And when I'm waiting for the show during the day, go to the mall and watch people interact and talk to people. My parents, I come from a normal suburban, I grew up in an apartment. My parents never met anybody from Fargo or from Florida or from, so it's like, I realize they don't know. And
so it's an empathetic take.
If it's more
you're not as cynical, you're not as, because a lot of people...
it's part of I can't control it. I'm not like it.
But you haven't taken it out on the public. Like you're generally a positive comedian.
No, I don't think I'm positive.
You don't think you're positive?
No. I think I'm, to be totally honest with you now, I am so medicated that I'm numb. I am. I wish I had more...
we'll have you back without the meds, and we'll see how that goes.
I don't know that I can make it back without the meds. I need the meds, but the meds are... I don't feel pain. I don't feel fear. I don't feel... I'm kind of dead inside. I am. My family complains about it.
I don't know what to say. I mean, you seem lovely to me, so... I'm
lovely, but I'm a lovely, soulless, dead person. I don't know if this is...
Well, that takes us right into...
No, just because I'm so empathetic, maybe, and overly sensitive that I need to be...
I see where you're going now.
I'm numb because pharmaceutically numbed.
Right.
So that I don't go all over the place.
Okay.
I always have to find that, they're always upping it and lowering it and whatever. my meds.
Yeah, I kind of went a different route, and I don't know if it was the right route.
It's never.
I live in a sort of a constant anxiety.
But we get comfortable with discomfort.
Yes, but when you talk about the alchemical process of transmuting trauma, pain, experience, and enlightenment into art, you know, that's an interesting Willy Wonka machine that goes on inside.
And that was my biggest. So it was either survive or take medication.
Sure,
because
I
I was
get
so
that.
afraid that I wouldn't have the art. I wouldn't have. But I don't know that if it's affected my my artistic endeavors. I don't know.
Right.
But I hope it hasn't, and I'm still, paying the rent, so I guess I'm okay.
Okay, we're at the very end. Thank you. This has been really fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. Has it been painful?
It's not painful at all. I love you, buddy. I love your art. I think I've gotten a chance to meet your beautiful family, and
I yours.
And when you meet somebody, when you listen to somebody and you enjoy their music and their performance, and then you meet somebody and they turn out to be even a better person than you can imagine, it is kind of thrilling, because those are few and far between. They say don't meet your heroes, don't meet people that you're a fan of, because you will be disappointed. You are not a disappointment. And in fact, I have been watching this particular show since it began, and I told you off camera, but I'll tell you on camera. You've interviewed some of the people that I've had on my podcast, and you've done a much better job. And even with those particular people, the audience at home has decided you've done a much better job, and you've gotten much bigger numbers than I ever got, and it deservedly so. You are a very good, and I don't think from listening and watching Smashing Pumpkins for the years I have, I would have known that you are such a good, because it's a skill that I don't really have. I'm just personally interested in talking to people, but you have a real skill here.
I don't know where it comes from. That's the weird thing. I sort of just found myself like Zelig in this world. Our final.
Go ahead.
What is your fulfilled wish? And what I mean by that is, setting aside everything we've discussed, the obstacles and the inhibitions and the medications, is there a fulfilled wish where you see yourself in your mind's eye of a place of arrival?
I have been...
Just try.
No, I'm answering you.
Okay.
It's just...
I don't mean don't try to answer me. I'm just trying to do the visualization.
The visualization, if you could believe it, and it's also a therapeutic skill set, is to try to live in the now. And I try to make now as painless as possible. So it's not, I don't wish for something in the future, because wishing for something in the future, in my negative kind of view of life.
That creates more anxiety.
Well, because I'm not there. I wish I had that. I wish I wasn't here. I wish I was there. So, or I wish I had, then I'm ruminating on the past. So my wish is that this moment is as painless as possible, as productive as possible, as good as possible. Like I'm having a good moment where I won't look back on this moment and go, oh, why did I do that? So it's just, I'm taking moment by moment. It's just, I'm climbing this ladder, and I just want this rung to not snap.
You're supported by the Zen masters. Be in the now.
I'm trying. I read a lot about the power of now.
Yeah. Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
You reminded me of something I've been telling my young son, who's about 9, because he's starting to realize what adulthood looks like, the very early glimmers of that. And I'm conscious of not putting my trauma on my child. And I told him the other day, just be happy wherever you are, even standing in the line. Just be happy.
That's all. I saw Seinfeld said, living is, he said something beautiful. He said, try to find a way to waste time with something you enjoy in that given moment, because that's all it is. Just waste your time. Waste it with something you enjoy. I'm enjoying myself in this moment. I'm enjoying talking to you. For the most part, I haven't thought of where I have to go after this. I haven't thought of what I did before this. You kept me in the moment. I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed my time here.
Thank you.
And so this was good therapy for me. And now I'll go and leave and be miserable.
We're done.
Thank you.
I give you the fist bump.